Welcome to the October meeting for Placerville Arts Association. I'm Linnell Phillips. Thank you all for attending. Today, artist Oren Miller will demonstrate and lead us through an interactive activity, the art of nature drawing with ink and natural objects. Plus, we'll have a video of our PAA fall member show. And in between the two, we'll have our announcements for the month. To prepare for Oren's demonstration, please gather your ink or other medium, your collection of found objects, and of course, some paper. If you would like to be a presenter or do a member share in 2023, please contact me. We plan to be back in a physical meeting no later than January and also plan to offer a Zoom component for the meetings. And so I will turn it over to Sue Wickersham, who is going to introduce our presenter for today.
Okay, thanks, Linnell. Thank you, everybody, for spending your Sunday afternoon with us. We appreciate it. I think it's going to be a fun, interactive event. So I want to introduce Oren a little bit, and then he can take it from there because he knows more about himself than I do. So today our guest is a versatile local artist, Oren Miller. Although I've never met Oren, I'm impressed with his resume as he has experience in drawing, collage, printmaking, lithography, oils, Japanese papermaking, and screen printing, just to name a few. He's also president of the Network El Dorado and I think it's Bear instructor at the Shape El Dorado gym. Today, he'll be leading the same exercises he did during 2020 for the El Dorado County program put together by Health and Human Services and Arts, Health and Human Service and Arts and Culture El Dorado. For those sessions, he introduced the art of nature drawing with ink and natural objects. Using our hands, eyes, and pace of breath, we will all be drawing slowly together in a way that most artists have not actually tried before. In fact, each individual will revel with the whimsical unpredictability of a natural object dipped in ink as it drags and scuttles across the paper surface. So it's my pleasure to hand the meeting over to you, Oren. And Oren, if you want to talk a little bit more about yourself, please do. I'm going to turn myself, my voice off and my picture off because where I have to do this drawing is in another section of my room. So thank you, Oren.
Thank you, Sue, and it's great to be here today. It's a pleasure to demonstrate this process that I've been working in as much time as possible since I first kind of started as a young person at the college level. It's called nature drawing for lack of a variety of better terminology, but it's a practice that we're going to find today is so utterly easy, enjoyable, and portable that it's going to be something that many of us may continue to do again in the future and find themselves teaching to others as well. So I want to know if every single person has gone and collected their nature specimens. If anyone hasn't yet, let me know right now. Sounds like an aye. So that means everyone's all set up, as am I. However, I want to mention that at the beginnings of sessions like these, I always try and do a little bit of an introduction, maybe describe some things before sending everyone outside for 3 minutes to collect their specimens and come back on in and settle down and arrange their stuff and maybe even do a minute of show and tell. Since everyone's already prepared, I'll take those 3 minutes to give a little more insight into the work that we'll be doing today. And one correction, thank you for the great introduction, Sue, but I want to explain that an instructor, a local fitness instructor, we refer to it as bar. You said bear fitness instructor, and there are a few of those in the world, but I'm not one of them. I teach bar, and it's a mix of ballet and Pilates.
Thank you.
So that's at In Shape. And anyway, look us up there, the time of your life. But let's get back to business. So one of the things about nature drawing is that you can do it inside or outside. One of the things that I love to do are work completely outdoors. And that's why I have this wonderful shirt here. It's an extra, extra large. I got it at Ross for about $6. And it's perfect for working outside, especially on days when it's hot. This is the same shirt that I wore in Maui when I worked there for a week, drew a series of drawings that I can refer you to at my website later. But also a nice hat is the kind of thing that is great for when you're working outdoors. This is a great outfit to protect you from the sun. And there's nothing wrong with getting some ink on it and stuff like that. The more ink, the better. I wear it like a suit of metals. So let's get back to business and talk about the things that we have today. And I'm going to focus my camera back down to the bottom. So as you can see, I have a few sheets of paper, 1, 2, and 3. We also have some scissors, obviously. I'm going to put those to the side. Here I have a bottle of ink. Now, I also have here a plastic bottle cap. This is perhaps the most important part of our ensemble today, and I want you to understand why. And that is because before we open this bottle of ink here, we want to be aware that ink spills and is a nightmare to clean up. So we have a bottle cap. And in fact, this bottle cap is just enough of a reservoir for the amount of ink that we will need today to do an hour's worth of drawing. In fact, we'll need next to 0 ink when you see how many drops we put in here. If someone wants to draw and they're not necessarily prepared with a bottle of ink, say for example, you've got some kids in the house and it's raining outside and they're antsy and you want to get them creative and get them focused on something, but you don't have the necessary ink. One of the things that many of you will recognize and might have in your kitchen are these food coloring dyes. Food coloring dyes are a perfectly suitable way to create an ink. And if you see here, I have 4 different colors. I don't have to tell you which ones I've got. You can see for yourself, but a mixture of these 4 colors spread evenly, poured into a small reservoir like a bottle cap, will make a wonderful black ink. And in fact, a black ink that ages in a sepia tone that can be unbelievably beautiful. So keep that in mind if you're without your favorite bottle of ink, or the last one you had dried up on you, which will happen. Now, thank you for your joining in, your patience. Let's take one of these pieces of paper and just move it up above our paper. So now we have 2 pieces here. Why don't we go ahead and I'm going to backtrack. It doesn't matter how many we have stacked up underneath. It just doesn't matter. One paper is for our nature specimens and the other is for drawing, obviously. So let's go ahead, all of us, and take 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of our nature objects and lay them on the piece of paper nearest your camera. Today, I have a nice section of an apple tree that actually came from Camino, and in the process of working on doing specimen studies of this tree alone, actually, in effort to complete a series of package designs for a local distiller. And we're making some beautiful labels and art will be involved. So now I want you to know that I don't see everyone on my camera. I'm looking at what I see, what you're seeing. And I want you to know that if someone has a question or something that they like to comment on, speak up because I won't see you waving. Who's ready to get started? I assume everyone's raised their hands. So let's go ahead and take our bottle caps. Go ahead and place the bottle cap right on the paper in front of you, or the paper along with the nature object. I like to stir up my ink like fine wine, a little upside down, a little this way, a little that way. Now I'm going to squeeze the top to fill the reservoir and open it right on up. And here we are. This dropper has how many drops in it? I don't know. But all we need to do are put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drops, and that's enough. Let's go ahead and close this lid and place this ink out of arm's length. Now, if we spill ink today, we're only spilling this much. This is important if you're working with young people. So, and this is a nice conservative way to keep things from turning into a nightmare in your kitchen. So now we can go ahead and take a piece of any one of our natural found objects. I actually want to take this leaf right here. I think that it's perfectly beautiful leaf. I think that I would like to maybe peel off a few leaves here, and I'm going to throw those, just let nature compose those leaves for me right there. And I have options. We have options. When it comes to a drawing implement, it's always up to you, and you can change at any time you like, or you can stick with a certain object or replenish it with an unused or a newly tipped or cut version of that. For example, let's go ahead and grab our scissors and our nature object. For me, I like to cut just the tip off of my natural object at an angle. Imagine cutting and leaving this littlest point there with which to dip into your ink. So we can put the scissors down and we can go ahead and take our drawing implement, place it in our drawing hand. And this is a great time for artists to start procrastinating and over contemplating, but it's also a good time to go ahead and get started without fear. I'm going to take my drawing implement and I'm just simply going to touch it to the black ink. It doesn't take a Rembrandt to figure out how to do this, but practice is always helpful. So I've dipped this in ink. I don't know if you can see that. I can see it just barely there. And now what we're going to do is come over to our drawing page. And before we set the black ink to paper, we look at our object, our display, the center of our focus. And I like to trace my eyes along the edges of things and allow my fingers and my hands to push and pull the drawing implement all along the perimeters of those things I am looking at. And I imagine or pretend that my hands and my drawing implement are like a caterpillar, just slowly walking and crawling along the edges of everything I see. And as it travels, so does my drawing implement. And it drags the ink in the path as my eyes are following. So in effect, as we start, you allow yourself to look at your subject and not the paper you're drawing on. Nobody really needs to care about that right now. And I'm going ever so slowly, and I realize now that these apple leaves have serrated edges like shark's teeth, and they're incredibly beautiful. And then as it curls, I see the smoothness of the face of it. Now, as I recommended, don't look at your paper while you draw, look at your subject. But there is something that we need to be aware of. Our drawing implements run out of ink. So we'll need to replenish them. And you'll find the less ink, the better. Go ahead, find where you stopped. Look where you stopped on your subject matter, lower the drawing implement to the paper, and then continue on without fear, without anxiety, without anything except your eyes following the edges like that mini caterpillar. So has anyone noticed any unusual sensations about drawing this way? What is happening for you?
Oren, this is Sue. I noticed the sound.
Like what kinds of sounds?
So I'm using, my implement is a dead leaf, and I'm using the stem part of it. And so the scratching kind of sounds as I drag it across the paper.
Exactly.
It's kind of cool because I don't hear that normally.
And how are your drawing implements reacting to this activity? Anyone?
Well, mine's acting like a dip pen.
And how
Anything
do
else?
how do dip pens act?
Well, you have to dip the ink into the, they're just like these implements where the ink goes onto the pen, although there's a little reservoir, and that, but it'll end, the ink will end and you'll have to dip again. But I think I probably have to dip more.
You're absolutely right about that. What about the nature of the drawing implements for anyone?
Are you on mute?
No, I will though.
Well, what I would like to point out is that, for example, my leaf, it's rather flexible. And as I push and pull, sometimes it skirts around and wobbles in ways I didn't actually intend. Has anyone experienced that yet?
That just happened for me.
What are some of our other drawers working with today? Go ahead and let us know.
I didn't have ink, so I'm working with acrylic paint. So I'm using a dark blue and dipping this little thingy in there, and it's not really the way I draw, but it's it's making some fun marks.
And what's your implement?
This little weed.
It's I can't see it. Is it a green weed?
It's no, it's an old dried up weed. Just a
Good.
little weed. Kind of looks like foxtail, but it's not. And then
Okay,
I had a big chunk of it, so I pulled a branch off, and the bottom had a little flat edge of its own. So I'm using that. And
dried plants are better than many of the green plants in this exercise because of their tensile strength. So for fun, I decide that I'm going to turn my leaf around and I'm going to see what happens when I draw with the end of this leaf, because in fact, as you can see, it is pointed. So for fun, we'll see how that goes.
wow.
I really love observing the details in the nature found objects. For example, the veins and the intricate details of a leaf are indicative of how they grow and how they're shaped like other things that we see, that like wings and they're just amazing. What I love about drawing with natural objects is their unpredictability. I think that there's something to be benefited from when working with this kinds of materials because it's kind of an equalizer. In a way, it does great things for artists of every level. For the beginner, I think it actually empowers them because it allows us to make mistakes that we're not allowed to make when drawing with pencils, pens, paintbrushes, and rigid objects and things like that. Because the natural objects seem to have a mind of their own, it gives us it gives a certain look to the work, but it also enables us to not worry about what we're doing, because you can simply say, well, blame it on the leaf or blame it on the twig. The best thing you can do is keep going, though. The very best thing is to keep going. Even if you make a mistake in the first minute, best thing to do is just to keep going. Have faith. And trust yourself when drawing. Yes, I'm really loving drawing with the tip of this leaf, especially the edges of the apple leaf itself. It's just perfectly suited. Amazing. Now I'm going to demonstrate a new concept. Here we have a branch from the same apple tree that I'm using. I'm actually going to use this as my next drawing implement, and I am going to cut it with these scissors at an angle. And now you can see or imagine that I have a rigid object here. This is going to be not quite as stiff as a pencil, but rigid enough to use as a rubbing or smudging device. And in order to do so, of course, it requires some ink on the tip. Here's a nice tip to have while doing this type of work. Having a third sheet of paper, or even using the paper that your drawing subject is located on, it's nice to have a third sheet in order to test your ink. For example, when you dip your stylus or found object into the ink and go straight to your drawing and lay that thing down, sometimes you'll see that you make big blobs, and that may not be what you wanted to do. Well, the way to solve that is by having a third sheet to test, so that when we make big old marks, it's not on the place you want a big old mark to be. Here's another thing that you can do, is you can take some of that ink and dab it, 1, 2, 3 dabs on your sheet of paper like so. And then you can make a little pool of ink. You can even see that from the distance there. This pool is slowly drying, but it's wet enough to make a smudge like so, which means, as you can obviously see, now we can work in gradations and we can complete an entire range of shadows with one tap to the ink. You rub and rub until you need more ink. So I'm going to start laying in some colors and adding values to my drawing for fun, because I love challenges like that. And I don't mind doing things the hard way. So I'm going to rub over here. I'm going to get that value on this test paper that where I want, and then I'm going to bring my stylus over here and I'm going to start coloring. Now you can really hear it, can't you, Sue?
Yes, sorry, I'm delayed. I have to roll back and forth. But yeah, I can really hear it.
And eventually you run out, which means you come back to your inkwell and then to your test page and back to your drawing. With this method, you can achieve 100% range of gradients from absolute white to absolute black. You would call this a rubbing, you would not call this a rubbing, you would call this technique rubbing. A rubbing is something else, as you know. But the smudging effect is a really wonderful way of showing ultra real scenarios in a full range of blacks, including landscapes and portraiture. I did a series of 5 Hawaiian works, all landscapes in this method that we're doing here, including rubbing. And those can be seen in full glory on my website at orenmiller.com/Eden.
Wow.
Each piece has about 18 to 24 hours of work, most of it on location. With this kind of drawing, you can spend 8 hours in the field and then come home and finish up your work in a few hours. If you want to really go for it. But it's a perfect method for laying those shadows in without cross-hatching. But of course, we can cross-hatch too with this method. But I like the rubbing method because it gets to the point fast and beautifully. I'm not aware of how long our session goes today. Does it go for an hour?
Yes, around till about almost 2, so about 2:30.
Okay, great. I just wanted to know because it gives me a sense of when I should introduce new concepts.
Sure, no worries. Thank you.
But we'll keep going with this. You can be doing line work at this point, or you can be doing some rubbing, or you can switch to a new object and keep to just outlining and showing details and edges. It's really up to you. One of the things that I think is really lovely with these kinds of drawings is that you can do them on location and have a few with you finished, framed up. And you can do events this way, just sitting and talking to people and drawing and selling artwork. Another thing is that, as you can see, every one of you has already achieved your certificate in nature drawing and are free to teach and instruct others in this method. As soon as this class is over, you get your official, unofficial academic transcript. I was supposed to be a joke. I didn't hear any laughing, but that's fine.
We're smiling.
I'm laughing, and please, you better hold back on that till you see what I'm actually doing. So
Yeah.
the jury is still out, as it often is with me. All right, back to our speaker.
Okay, well, I get what you're saying. I think the one way to fix the way you're feeling is to stop looking at the paper you're drawing on and just look at the natural objects.
Oh, I'm feeling fine. Never worry about me. I'm just saying it's not going to come out the way you're predicting.
Another great thing about these are that you can spend an hour or two on a day like today and maybe do just a single leaf every time. Just draw one leaf and then draw another and then another, and maybe draw 5 or 6. And if you keep everything nice and tidy with enough paper to work on, center your object right in the center, do half a dozen pieces, then you have possibly potentially solved half a dozen of your Christmas shopping needs come holiday time, because you can put a $9 frame around these drawings and they can be quite a beautiful gift. Or you can make a handmade card, fold the paper in half and write something nice on the inside. Today, I've chosen to continue with a singular subject of these 3 apple leaves rather than to draw, and start over with new pieces. But it's up to you to go about it the way you feel like doing today. And if I were only able to use acrylic paint for this, I would definitely water that stuff down to almost the consistency of milk.
Yeah.
Because acrylic would be about the least desirable thing to draw with, I believe, because of its drying capacity, and also especially if you wanted to do smudging, because it just dries so fast. I would say that using perhaps an oil paint diluted with a solvent would be about 10 times better than an acrylic. I also think that the food coloring is would be more conducive to doing good work, but I'm eager to see how it's going with the acrylic.
Well, I think I kind of stepped outside the realm of what everybody was up to. But I did stay with the object, with what I started with this plant thing over here.
So if anyone is getting bored, you're going to have to be the ones to chime in and let me know. Otherwise, I'll just draw away. If no one stopped me, I could draw till midnight. And so when you're rubbing, you can rub in all sorts of directions. You can imagine cross-hatching with a rubbing technique, and it's essentially going one way and then the other way and then the other way, and then as many ways as it takes to, blend those shadows and avoid the inconsistencies that might be taking away from the level that you're shooting for in your drawing. But cross-hatching is a wonderful technique used by all sorts of artists, painters, and the greatest painters even paint with cross-hatching. We can do the same thing here. Another nice thing about making mistakes in art this way is that when you walk away from the subject matter and you take the artwork with you, and you take yourself to another place or another time with it, and you look at it, and you look at your drawing by itself, all of the mistakes that you made and that you were aware of while making the piece seem to go away, because now this becomes our only memory, and it becomes the official memory of what nature objects you found. And I think there's something nice about that too. Very few art mediums are as forgiving as techniques like this. Now I'm getting close to a point where I'm going to move into the next level or concept. But I'm going to really go for it and get there fast. Many mistakes in my page here, many. And since I'm working on something, trying to make something kind of nice here, I'm going to go ahead and lay some shadows on the surface that my leaves are actually sitting on. And this is risky because I could ruin this thing, but today I'm not working with any fear. I'm just going to go ahead and just not worry about it. There we go, right there. How about some over here too? Right there. Not dark enough. And if you're drawing on a surface that has got texture and rubbing, then the texture will actually come through to the surface, which is then, of course, as you know, a rubbing. Then it becomes a rubbing, which is actually a printmaking process. Okay. So I feel as though I've reached a point where I can either continue on and work out any small details, and I could spend a couple more hours refining this, but I believe that I've reached a point that I'm satisfied with and am ready to perhaps take to the next level. And here it is. I don't know what quality it is. All I know is that it's a nice record of my time spent observing nature and being willful and having patience and looking to see a little more than I saw before. Next, here's a technique that I think is like the glint in the eye of a beautiful portrait. Without it, life is less obvious in the work. So I'm going to show you what I like to do. I like to take my drawing implement, especially a flimsy one like this, and I like to tap the tip of the drawing implement into the ink. And this is where I trust that nature's going to give me her best. And I'm going to hold the drawing implement about 8 to 10 inches over my drawing surface. And I'm going to lift my finger and tap, tap, tap. Nothing happened because I was too busy flapping my jaws and the ink dried. I'm going to try again. Tap, 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 tap. There we go. I don't want to do too much, but when we add, I've done it rather conservatively. Perhaps you can't see them, but let's go ahead and make them more obvious. A little more ink. Oh, I see why. It's because my ink's all dried up. Kind of. Here we go. Tap. Tap. So I'm going to add a little ink here to my bottle cap because the lack of ink is ruining my presentation. I say with a smile. One more dip and one more tap. There we go. And Mother Nature will just do what she wants to do. And the trick is to not overdo it, but some taps of the ink over the drawing lend a little bit of life to an already lively drawing. I like to let these pieces dry before I take on the next step. I also like to sign the finished work in pencil. And if you're asking why I would do such a thing, it's because I want the drawings to be lively and unpredictable with the ink from the drawing implement, but I do not want my signature to be that way. And a pencil is a beautiful complement to the ink on paper. And whatever you do, when you sign it, make sure that your signature's weight is lighter than the drawing. The last thing anyone wants to see on a picture is our big old signatures glaring from a corner. I'd like to demonstrate a few samples of great artists' work in this medium. Starting with a favorite, Egon Schiele, Austrian, born 1890. He was a student of Gustav Klimt, and his portraiture is said to have been drawn with non-traditional drawing implements. I could show you a lot more of his work, but it may not appeal to many of you. His subject matter was such. Here's an American artist, another one of my favorites by the name of Andrew Wyeth, who was the son of one of the greatest poster, advertiser, painter, illustrators of our history in America, Newell Converse Wyeth. Andy Wyeth was famous for drawing outdoors, spent lots of time there, and here are examples of his drawings done exactly as we've done today, using natural objects and sepia ink carried in his pocket. I think the most important artist to have worked in this method is one you've all heard of, and that would be Vincent van Gogh.
No, I don't.
Vincent van Gogh, as you know, is arguably the greatest painter to have ever lived, but he was also a drawer beyond measure, and I mean beyond measure. He did many things, but this piece from the republished sketchbook shows 2 or 3 onions drawn, both with stylus and natural objects. You can recognize the familiar patterns. Here's a portrait drawn with a stick. I would recommend looking up the film that was made within the last 5 years, and it's titled At the Gates of Eternity. It stars Willem Dafoe as Vincent van Gogh during his time in Arles.
Where?
The movie was inspired by the discovery of the original sketchbook from which this book replicates to its best ability and tells us stories of Van Gogh and Gauguin and life at that time, but also it's an amazing revelatory experience, realizing that the original sketchbook was found over 100 years later tucked away in the walls of the French drinking establishment where his sketchbook was laid and then stacked upon and forgotten until its discovery. So I can't imagine, I mean, that's like winning the if to find that would be like winning the lottery 10 times over. And I hate to monetize or commodify that body of work, but the book itself features this technique in high volumes and is such an amazing story in art, in the history of art. I'd like to show that as our ink dries a little more, I like to use a heavy paper when I draw in this method, because scrubbing and smudging and rubbing is such kind of it can be taxing on your paper. So it's nice to be using stiffer stuff. This is 90 pounds. Don't forget, food coloring is a fantastic substitute on a rainy day. But I'd like to move on to the next part. Looks like we have about 8 minutes left here. You all recognize this right here. If you'll excuse me, I forgot to get a cup for the next step. And this is something that you can easily predict what we'll do and follow along, or just watch. I'll be back. Little water. So these are kid tested watercolors, so you know they're good. I have two sons, 14 and 16, and this was brand new when they were young. So I like to use bamboo brushes. I love them. They're great with ink. They're great with watercolor. I'm simply going to load up my brush today with some green. First, I'm going to load up my brush with some water, and I'm going to hit that green a little bit, and I will throw some of that green over here, but I never work with straight colors ever. So let's take its opposite, red, and bring it in to the play here. Nature doesn't quite operate in pure colors the way sets like these do. Let's not make the mistake of working in single color every time. A little more water. Ah, yes. How about some purple for fun? Let's keep things exciting. Now the easy part is just simply laying in light washes of your subject material. Grab a little extra water or grab a little extra pigment and just fill in the lines. And sometimes if we drop a little bit like that, sometimes it makes it nicer, but I recommend waiting till the end before you do stuff like that. But it's kind of nice that large swashes of color go on rapidly. And effectively. Let's add in a little pure color to intensify the hue, a little here. And if that color moves outside of the lines, good. Put a little more over here. And let the paper tell it where it wants to go. And let it dry. When you're ready and when the paper and the ink, or I'm sorry, the watercolor pigment has dried, then you can go ahead and lay additional colors around there. But I recommend waiting. I think the next color I would choose would be something in the warm range. So I would start adding in my warm tones to balance what I've got there now. But it depends on where you like to start. But don't let yourself get discouraged by watercolor. The trick is just to do a little bit at a time. Sticking with one color or one range of color per area is really the best way to go. But I'm not a true watercolorist, so you can take that as, with a grain of salt. Are there any questions you have on what I've shown you here or some of the artworks that I've demonstrated with?
Lauren, I have a question. I used a couple of different kinds of paper, and I tried I had some scrap mat board, and it just soaked in so fast. I used Bristol board, and it was a lot better because it sat on the top a little better. What kind of paper are you using?
I'm using drawing paper.
Okay, because it worked.
Drawing paper.
All right, drawing paper, because I've used Bristol
drawing.
board and watercolor, and those worked the best. Okay, and then the watercolor paint does not smear your ink. This ink is, as soon as it's dry, it won't smear, correct?
It's not smearing mine. The word is dilute. It doesn't dilute.
Okay.
I'm using permanent ink, but that's one of the things we learn how to use the materials we have at hand, and we learn them through practice. So if you're using an ink that is dilutable with water, then you learn how to adjust to it and work accordingly.
Oh, I just noticed mine says waterproof India ink. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Are there any other questions or comments?
I'll comment. I got a little ahead of you on adding in the color wash because my exploding feather really needed it, and I had some radiant concentrated watercolor in my studio, and so I just grabbed it, and much to my delight, I noticed as the watercolor was drying on the ink, it really produces a wonderful color. Like when I first put it onto the darker parts of the drawing, I couldn't see it at all. But as it dries, it just really pops with the color. I was using green on the black, and it's very nice technique. Thank you for showing this to us today.
Well, one of the things that you touched upon is that this process, along with so many other processes in art, are about self-discovery and learning the medium and how it behaves. And you can take this away from nature drawing by going in a new direction. Say, for example, this could be a great place to sort of work in an abstract manner. And you can allow yourself to make up the rules as you go. And for this, because it's a slow process, I think that the best results can be related to their measures of time spent. And sometimes those pieces, especially after practice and semi-frequent rehearsals, sometimes those first drawings that may only take 5 or 7 minutes come out so sweetly. And I think this is a great method for discovering accidentally your abilities and the ability to be spontaneous with your work and adventurous at the same time.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's very true with what you've shown us today. And you're right in there on time. I'm just wondering, I would very much like to see, Maggie, what have you drawn?
My first abstract.
Okay, let's see it, babe.
Let's have an art show if you don't mind. Can I wait?
All
Can
right.
you wait to
Wait.
And I started out with
okay.
this as my subject. It was off of my crepe myrtle tree.
I see a lot of activity there.
Yeah, well, number one, I didn't have the right stuff. So I had all these things from my yard. I wanted to see what they did.
So that's the one that's in acrylic.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I want to say that for the material, you've actually put quite a bit of time and markings on your paper. And in fact, you did a very nice job of utilizing the space. And plus, even though I can't see anything in detail on Zoom, I can see productivity and a nice kind of interesting blast of composition mixed with details. And so that's very nice.
Well, it's something I've never done. I paint
Did you,
animals,
have you surprised yourself in any way?
Only in that I would probably throw it away. It was fun, but I'm strange. I've never had any art school or anything. I've never studied any other painters, and I
Okay.
don't,
Well,
so
please.
look, somebody who's totally ignorant of art.
Don't throw it away.
Well, I wouldn't say ignorant. I liked the work that you've made, and I beg you, please do not throw it away. Who's next?
Well, and don't throw it away, Maggie. Wrap a gift with it. Don't throw it away.
Don't do that
Oh.
either.
Well,
Don't
stiffer.
ruin artwork, please. Don't ruin anything that you've made, not even something that's bad.
That using it as
Okay.
wrapping paper is ruining it, but I believe it's repurposing it, but we can disagree on
Okay.
that. Carolyn, let's see yours.
Who's next?
Carolyn, will you share?
Yes, I will share. Am I unmuted now?
You are.
Okay, so this is what I did on the Bristol board. First, I had a grouping of leaves,
Very
and
nice.
I also had, I can't see what I'm showing you. A grouping of leaves I did the second time. I'm kind of happier with that one. And then I
Beautiful.
had this acorn, and I did that. Can you even see it? I did
I
that.
think that acorn is astounding. Let's see the other acorn.
There, it's down there. Can you see both of them now?
They're beautiful.
Okay, and then I had a little acorn cap. And so I did that little acorn
Okay.
cap. And then I had a shell. And I wasn't happy with well, this was the one I did on the back of the mat board, and it just dried up so fast. So I did it on some watercolor paper, and it worked out a little bit better. So there we
Okay,
go.
those are great examples. Can I offer you a bit of advice?
Absolutely.
I think that those acorns that you drew are so perfect and wonderful that you could take one of them, isolate it using your digital equipment, and make one of those into a nice little logo for yourself, or into a beautiful rubber stamp that you can use during the holidays. Because
Okay.
especially that top one, as I'm remembering, was it's a perfect blend of light and dark. And I believe that you can tell immediately what that is, which also would translate wonderfully as a rubber stamp.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Who's next?
How about you, Sue? Are you willing to share?
Oh, yeah. I like the whole process. And since I go to the river a lot, you know what? I got to undo my thing. I got to take the
Or
background
just hold
off.
it
Hang
right
on.
in front of your face.
Yeah.
Will it work? Well,
Yes.
I'm almost there. Well, I can hold it in front of my face.
Oh,
Really?
okay. Yeah.
No,
it
I
has
think
to
I got
come-
to take
it
the
has-
background off.
Yeah, you will.
Let's
have
go on
take
to the
the
next
background
person while
Okay.
she figures that part
off.
out.
Carrie, do you want to share? Do you have anything to share? Donna, do you have anything to share? Fab, do you have anything to share?
I don't have anything to share because I'm working at the same time and I was listening. It was really
Okay.
enlightening and I really enjoyed the presentation.
Looks like we've got a background issue fixed. What work were you going to show us?
Sue?
There you go.
Okay,
I had a variety of things, leaves, a little sunflower thing, a leaf. No, not a leaf. Well, I had leaves, a feather. I get kind of heavy handed. And then my watercolor kind of merged with the ink, but I think that's cool. So I'm happy. I'm happy with it. It was fun.
can you move the drawing slowly to the left and right? Yeah, okay, we're seeing more of it. And what specimens did you collect today?
It's a little yellow flower, kind of like a mini sunflower,
Mhm.
and that's the leaves and the little flowers. And then
Yeah.
a little grape leaf, a feather, and then what I drew with was a fresh leaf, a dry leaf, and a stick.
Okay, yeah, so I've noticed over time that the greener the object, the softer it is. And our tendency is to over dip these types of things into the ink in order to get, a satisfactory kind of reaction of laying ink on paper. So sometimes that can be counterproductive, but who am I to say? Art processes are each our own, and there's no right or wrong way. But one thing that I know about the plant you use is that the colors that go into those types of plants are on the lighter side, so under 50% gradient, and regardless of their colors. And if you're interested, the best thing to do in that situation, when you're dealing with something that's a light color, but you're drawing with absolute black ink, which is difficult when you think about it, but really the trick is to use the process of rubbing that ink tip to the point where it's starting to dry and become almost nothing at all. And to describe those lighter colors, it's a longer process. And the other option is to just do outlines and have fun with that and show all the details. I recommend drawing branches, pieces of sticks, the kinds of sticks that you find that have fallen under the oak tree and break off a bit, because they're so full of beautiful bark and algae and so forth, and details that really an infinite array of detail is available in such a mundane object like that. But I have had a great time today, and I want to thank you all for participating and considering me in the first place to be good for this job. And I want to thank you and commend you all for your bravery in art. And I wish you the best in your careers and the most success possible. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Erin,
Thank
for being
you.
with us today. We really appreciate it. We will move along to our announcements. A reminder to all of you with entries accepted into the Motherlode Show that Thursday, October 26th, between 9 and 5 is the day to deliver your art to the MAC in Rancho Cordova. You are all invited to attend.
No. It's Wednesday, the 26th.
Okay,
Wednesday, October 26th is intake.
got it. Wednesday, October 26th. I'll check my calendar when I go back in, make sure I've got it right.
Okay, thanks.
You're all invited to attend the show opening November 3rd and running till November 19th. We're planning an awesome reception on Friday evening, November 4th. Our show judge, Barbara Berg, will offer a show critique that evening. We're also pleased that Barbara will join us for our November member meeting via Zoom to discuss the show with us. Monday, tomorrow, we have an organizational meeting for our 2023 member meetings. Please join us at 2:30 at the Senior Center on Spring Street in Placerville. Bring art to share. We'll have refreshments. Our meeting is in the large lunchroom. A reminder, PAA members whose entries were juried into the Motherlode Show are eligible for additional awards. We currently have 149 members and would love to see your name in our end of the year roster too. If you're not a member of PAA and would like to join, Registration links are available on our website under the Join tab. We will also accept 2022 memberships during intake for the Motherlode Show. This will be your last opportunity to join Placerville Arts Association for the 2022 calendar year. All 2022 members will be listed on our website and included in our printed member roster. Our next board meeting will be Friday, November 4th, 10 to noon in the Raley's Conference Room in Placerville. Any member is invited to attend. We have openings on our board as well as advisory and committee volunteer opportunities. The best way to find your fit to do more with PAA is to join us at the board meetings. We will be making formal nominations for the year's board at this meeting. If you're interested in participating in next year's board, please contact me to discuss the possibilities. Art lunch will be November 9th. Check the November newsletter for time and location details. Last month's discussion included cultural appropriation and art authenticity. I hope you will join us in November. The topics are always interesting. Depending on weather, please consider that this event may take place inside a restaurant. Tuesday Art Time is back Tuesday morning at the Senior Center. Carolyn Cunningham is the organizer of the group. See the newsletter on Placerville Arts Association website for her contact information. Carolyn also organizes our plein air paint outs. More information about these events can be found on our website and in the newsletter. Also, many thanks to Julia Swain for her production of our member shows for many, Julia says, at least 10 years. Julia is retiring as our member show chair, and Carolyn Cunningham will be producing our next shows. All right, just so you guys know, I did participate in this demonstration. I do want to share my representation of my exploding feather. I'm really glad that Oran left before I had to show that. And what I'm wondering is, since most of you, hey there, Carrie, did you have something you painted you want to share with us, Carrie? No? Okay. All right. So I have two options here. I can play the videos from our that I made during the art show with the judges' critique. If any of you would like to hear those now, or I can simply post those on our YouTube channel if you would prefer. Oh my God, I didn't realize Oren was still on here. He might have actually seen my artwork. That's terrible. Okay. What do you guys think? You want me to play those movies and hang around or don't hang around? It's about 40 minutes of video that I made of the judge's critique. I did a walk around the show after the judge wasn't there anymore. And then I have a little bit of a few minutes of our award acceptance at the reception. So without further ado, you guys may stay on or drop off, and I'm going to start playing videos and we're going to see how this goes. Carolyn, did you want to just adios? Is that goodbye from you? All right, here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start playing the judge's critique.
Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, all right. Sorry, I need to share screen so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Okay, here we go. Horror show.
Well, no, can you hear me? It's really choppy. And it's choppy like it's going frame by frame. You probably don't see that.
I don't see that. So why don't we just do this instead of trying to include this in this recording? Let me just post it up on YouTube and then everybody can have a clean view of it when it gets up there. Sound good?
Unless I'm the only one that sees
No,
it choppy, I don't know.
No,
Me
it's
too.
choppy on my end too. I think
It-
yours
It's
is not-
choppy. It's
Okay.
choppy. You can't really hear what anybody's saying. Anything.
Okay, well, let's put it up on YouTube because I think it's going to be really nice and really clear on YouTube, and I will try to get that
Yeah.
up within the next 24 hours,
Well-
and then we'll circulate some links on it.
Thank you, Linnell, for doing that, because I think that'll be really valuable for everyone.
I
I agree.
agree. Yeah, I think it'll be something different. And from my end, it sounds very clear and looks really good. So once we get that uploaded to YouTube, we should get around these buffering problems from being live on Zoom. And it should be an effective way to put it up there. So Sue, will you request the check for Oran from Jerry, please? Oren?
I have done that already, but I'll remind her.
Okay, very good. You rock. All right. I appreciate everyone being here today. If anybody else has anything to say, please let me know at this point. Otherwise, we are going to conclude the meeting for the day.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
All right. Thank you all too. Awesome work on the Motherload show, ladies. That is just super. I cannot believe the number of entries we got in this year. I'm just stoked, and it's going to be an awesome show. I'm especially looking forward to seeing the door. I'm intrigued by the door that's coming. So it'll be very interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't get in. I know Maggie didn't get in. And I know a lot of
did.
our really good artists didn't get in. Sue didn't get in. But oh well, we'll try again next year. And in the meantime, I hope to see you all at the show or the reception. So thanks
Yeah,
for joining
it'll
us
be-
today. And I'm going to stop our video recording if I can figure out how to do it.